Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Inspiring Possible podcast. How are you doing? I hope you're taking little small steps today to get to wherever you are trying to get to, and hopefully not losing yourself along the way. But today we are doing another solo show with yours truly, and we are diving into a topic that makes everyone sweat a little or a lot in my experience, and that is doing scary things. I figured it is the month of October. A lot of people, I know a few of y'all out there live the Halloween season. You're already making your house a haunted mansion. I'll be honest with you, my favorite or least favorite, actually, hold on, excuse me, let me correct myself. Least favorite thing is scary movies or scary places. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm like, I don't want any more anxiety than I sometimes already experience. However, I tend to often put myself in situations where I'm doing scary things and maybe not like scary, ooh, like Halloween, but scary as in like, how in the heck am I doing this right now? Because former me and even current me wonders if I've lost a little bit of a grip on reality. So I don't know if that's ever been something that you've done where you put yourself in something scary where you're like, I have no idea why I'm doing this. I know a little bit why I'm doing this, but I'm scared and excited all at the same time. And so whether you are in a place today, whether you're starting something new, having a tough conversation, actually, those are really scary things for me, believe it or not, or you're taking a big leap into the unknown. I'm here today to help you break it down and show you how to face it like a pro. So let's get brave together, folks. So, why are scary things, scary? Well, for starters, fear is totally normal, y'all, and it's part of the human experience. Thank you, brain. Seriously, our brain loves to protect us, but sometimes it overdoes it. Why? Well, I ask that question to myself many times. In fact, sometimes when I'm driving down the road, I'm like, I'm feeling anxious, which is not always a common occurrence for me. But then I have to question, like, why am I feeling anxious? There's something in my body that's trying to give me some clues that something maybe is not right or something's making me uncomfortable. But our brain is really just trying to protect us because anything new or uncertain feels risky. I haven't met many people in my life that come up to me and say, you know what, Christy? I love uncertainty. you know, like example right now is this toilet paper shortage that's happening again. In fact, I just cleaned out an old office of mine and found that somebody gave me in 2020 this like Girl Scout badge. Y'all remember those badges? I don't know if you were in Girl Scouts, but I was in actually this like version of Girl Scouts that was called JOY. And we would get badges. And I remember like 6-year-old me, 7-year-old me, maybe even 8-year-old me thought badges were the coolest thing because I got to put them on my little like vest and wear them proudly. But somebody in 2020 gave me one of those badges. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a blast from the past. But it had a 2020 paper roll, toilet paper, epidemic type of thing going on here. Toilet paper shortage is what it said. And so I think about this, for example, people recently have felt uncertain about whether or not they will have toilet paper. And if that's you, please know I have no judgment of you. But I often think if I'm going to be scared about something, for me, it's not necessarily about not having toilet paper because I find that there's other ways you could manage that. But I'll leave that to your imagination. But Sometimes people think uncertainty, when am I going to get toilet paper again? And your brain that loves to protect you says you should go hoard some toilet paper. I'm using that as an example because it's fresh on my mind, but I'll share a quick personal example of maybe something that freaked me out and how I had to face it head on. Believe it or not, doing this podcast was one of those things. I remember when I recorded the first episode, I was like, this is terrifying, specifically these solo shows. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I cannot have a conversation with someone and I really love conversation. Or maybe it was because I thought to myself, no one will listen to this. I don't know what it was, but it was scary because it was uncertain. Now, 70 something odd episodes later, it doesn't feel as scary because I've done it and survived. So right now I'm actually going through a big decision that's pretty scary for me. Maybe not as scary as the first time I did it, but it's a pretty big, I guess, financial decision that has more work involved in it, but it could be a really great opportunity for me and my business. But part of me is super scared. So I'm going to use my own example of making a financial decision that could seem really scary, how I, in my mind, think this is maybe freaking me out in a way, but I also feel like this has been put in my path for a reason. And this is how I help myself through anything scary. And hopefully, as I'm sharing this today, if you have something you feel called towards that you are working towards, it could be a goal to maybe get in better shape or to maybe end a relationship or start a new one. I don't know what it is. Or maybe it's I need to leap out of this job because it just is not fulfilling to me anymore. And all of those things, that taking leaps into uncertainty is part of one of the scariest things you can do in life. But how do you make the scary a little bit more bearable? It doesn't mean that scary ever ends. It just, how do you get through it and do it scared? Okay. The first step is, what's the worst that could happen? I like to play this game. What's the worst that can happen? So you break your fear down into smaller, more manageable parts. So, using the what's the worst that could happen exercise, it turns out a lot of times it's not as bad as we imagine. And if this worst case scenario happens, I'm probably going to figure something else out to move through it. And this all boils down to dealing with failure. And a lot of us do not do failure well. We just don't. Maybe we were taught at some point that like failing was not good. Thank you, school system, I can remember at one point thinking like the worst thing in life would be to get an F. But guess what I learned as I got older? That it really, really wasn't the scariest thing. And I also learned that nobody at this point in life asked me what grades I made in high school, in college. I mean, even as a therapist, nobody asked me what my graduate school transcript looked like. They don't even sometimes know that, check that I have an active license, which I do as a therapist, just in case anybody was wondering. But what I'm saying is all of these things that in the midst of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, if this would happen, if I failed in this capacity, I used to think like it would be the worst thing. And it really, in reality, was not. And I think the best way to think about this, the worst thing that could happen, is to think about past things that you thought that if this worst thing happened, it would be the end of the world. And if something like that has happened, reminding yourself that you got through it. So listen, you will not melt into a puddle if you mess up. I promise. And one of the things that I'd really love us to do, and I know this is so hard, but to normalize failure because it's a part of growth. Seriously, I've read a lot of books over the past several years because I just want to learn from people that have created these seemingly impossible things. And we've had some amazing guests on this show where I've picked their brains and been like, how did you get to where you were? And how did you get to this place that in my mind seems like it would be really hard to get to? And I've never heard of one story of somebody doing something pretty incredible And let's talk about incredible to them. Like, it could be incredible that you walked a certain distance today to somebody. So, things that for them, they once thought was not possible for them actually making it there, oftentimes it's riddled with so many failures, so many things that went wrong, so many things that didn't work out. And a lot of times that failing is growing. And one of the things that I love to remind myself about failure is at least I tried. Because so many people sit on the sidelines. And if this is you, this is no judgment or shame here, but it may be a challenge. They sit on the sidelines and they say, one day I will. Or they don't even try because they say that's too scary. And what I'm here to encourage you to do today is that, I mean, like, if you can survive middle school gym class, you can survive anything. Am I right? Am I right? Okay. And there's other things that you have survived in life that you have been able to make it through. So how do we take the first step? Because that is always the hardest. And like I said, a lot of times we can talk ourselves out of something before we even start. But getting started is all about baby steps. You don't need to climb the mountain today. Just take one small step. So, back to just the start of this podcast when it was really scary for me to do something like this. And I'm not saying it's still scary sometimes for me to listen back to it and be like, oh, what did it sound like today? But I didn't have to just start doing this very with ease and comfort and no anxiety yesterday. I had to do it a little bit at a time. And the first thing was to buy a microphone. That's what I did first. Another thing was like, commit to a date that I wanted to air it. The next thing was make sure and write down what the intro was going to sound like and what the outro was going to sound like. And then I decided what are the pillars of what this podcast is founded on. Why is this important? It did not happen overnight. And I can assure you that anything that anybody's done that's hard always starts with a baby step. If you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me say, you don't go to the highest cliff. Typically, most people do not have the tolerance for this and say, I am going to jump into the great abyss. No, they just say, okay, if I can go to this like little baby place and jump off there, then maybe I'll build my confidence. And actually, this reminds me of a story where this summer a few friends of mine went on a kayaking trip. No, it wasn't kayaking. I lie. Canoe. I like to kayak, but we were actually in canoes. And there is a local small river, I guess you could say, called the Wiskachita around here in Louisiana. If you are from these parts, you have probably been down it at some point in your life. And it's pretty fun because you get with a group of people. You go, you get this canoe that you rent, you put some people in it, and you float down the river over the day. Course of a day, normally it takes you about 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, depending on how slow you're going. And for those that drink, how intoxicated you get. But I remember we were floating down this river and we get to a part where there is a tree that has kind of like fallen down. And I was with a friend of mine at the time, and they said, maybe we should jump off that tree. And everything within me was like, that sounds like a terrible idea because you don't know what's under the water. Like, I guess I've just seen too many movies where people jump off and they don't know. And so my friend went up the tree. Of course, they went to the tallest part of the tree that they could actually inch up to, and they jumped and they survived, thankfully. So I watched this a few times and I'm like, okay, everybody seems to be doing okay. Maybe I'll try. And I get up on the tree and I inch myself up a little bit out of the water and I jump off at the lowest point to start. And then after I did that, I said, oh, you know what? This is actually fun. I creep a little bit more up along the tree, a little bit further off the water, jump again, survive, inch a little bit further up, jump off again, survive. And so after I got my bearings and realized that I'm actually going to be okay and this is fun, this is no longer scary, this is actually fun, then I went higher and higher. And so when you're thinking about doing something scary and about taking that first step, because that's always the hardest, remember that action creates momentum. And once you're rolling, it's harder to stop than keep going. And this is so true. Like once you learn to jump, it gets harder to stop jumping. And I mean that in a very like safe, you still have to take calculated risk and all that kind of stuff, right? But like break any goal that you have into tiny tasks and check off even the smallest win. Okay. So you're going to check off if you buy that microphone. Check. Woohoo. Or you climb up that tree just a little bit. You got up there. Woohoo. Let's say that you've really been wanting to take some action in your health and you make the phone call to just see like what's available in your area, or you do a quick Google search or whatever. Small win. Woohoo. And every time you check off the smallest win, that helps you build confidence. And you have to celebrate the wins because sometimes there's not always people off to the side ready to cheer you on and celebrate. So you have to celebrate. In fact, what I did, I remember it was like 2 years ago. I remember I had survived, and I say this if you're a business owner, you know what I'm talking about. I had made it to year 3 in business, and I remember I thought that was an incredibly awesome feat, and I decided to take this last-minute trip to this poetry retreat of all places. But one thing that I did was on my way to this poetry retreat, I had actually stopped in London. I know, it was really cool, okay? And somebody had told me, they're like, "Christy, there's this place called Duck and Waffle, and it is like I don't even know how many floors up. In fact, I'm gonna find out right now for you." And they said, "You know what? You should, if you're gonna be in London for a little bit." And I was, like, in London for, like, 24 hours. They said, "You should go to Duck and Waffle, and you should get there really early in the morning. You have to make a reservation, and you should watch the sun come up over London." And I said, "Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing." So I woke up before there was any light out, and I remember, from my hotel to this restaurant that I knew was several blocks away. I mean, it still took me a good, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to get there. I rode this elevator up to the 40th floor. Okay. It was this restaurant that had floor to ceiling windows. And I sat by the window because I had requested, I reserved it. And I watched the sunrise in London. And it was so cool. And I remember they said, "Are you celebrating something?" And I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but I wrote that I was celebrating that I had celebrated making it 3 years in business and seeing this vision that I had come to life, where I had to do a lot of scary things to get here. Seriously, a lot of scary things. And if I can do it, the reason why I do this podcast, if I can do it, it doesn't mean that your calling's the same as mine, but you can do it too. You can do hard things. You can do scary things. And they brought out this beautiful, I don't know if it was like a little cake or something. It was delicious, but it said, "Congratulations, happy 3 years," or something like that. And it had like a beautiful candle, and they brought it to me. And that is an example of how you celebrate wins. Now, you don't have to take a trip to London and get you a reservation to watch the sunrise, but I remember that was an important time for me. Nobody was there. I mean, except for the people that were also eating and people that were serving me that day. But I did that as a small victory. And it wasn't really a small victory, but it was like my way to say, "You know what? You did that. Celebrate the win." And so often we minimize the wins that we have in our life. We undermine them. And so when you are taking, I don't care if it is a babyest a baby step, I want you to celebrate that win because it's important. And you did that. The next thing is mindset shift. Okay. And that is where we reframe fear as excitement. So here's the trick. Fear and excitement are basically the same thing in your body. Think about it. Heart racing, palm sweating. So why not flip the script? So instead of you, when you feel scared, saying, "I'm not scared," say, "I'm excited." Come on, let's say it again. Say it with me. I'm excited. I'm excited. This is actually really helping me with the thing that I'm scared with right now. I'm excited. It's really not scary. It's exciting. Could it all go up in flames? Could the worst thing happen? Absolutely, it could. But I am choosing excitement over fear. And I'm going to say it, repeat it, and believe it. Because y'all know if we believe it's possible, it's going to be a lot more possible than if we don't think it is. So I'm excited. And then you need to get your people around you. The buddy system works for grown-ups too, folks. I'm just letting y'all know the buddy system works for some grown-ups too. Y'all remember y'all when it had the buddy system where you like walked around and it was like, don't leave your buddy for a client for a class field trip. Well, buddy system works for grown-ups. And having someone in your corner can make all hold on, let me emphasize this again for y'all. All the difference. Whether it's a friend, mentor, accountability buddy, I don't care if you got to pay somebody, but find somebody who's going to support you. I mean, it's cooler if it's like, an unpaid situation, but you need to find somebody that'll push you when you need it and cheer you on. So it's time for story time. I'll share a moment where having a support system totally changed my perspective on a scary challenge. In fact, it actually just happened this week. And I'm going to use my mom as an example. This is not the first person I came to mind, although she really is a friend, a mentor, and accountability buddy. But I called her and I said, Mom, I'm really thinking about doing this thing that's kind of scary. I cannot believe that I'm doing this again. I would have never thought that I'd be here again. And I'm faced with leaping off this cliff again. And I just called her to say, hey, this is what I found out about this next step that I was considering. And you know what? She told me, you're going to do it. I can't remember what she said exactly, but she pretty much said, like, this is a goal of yours that you've had. And even though you didn't expect it to happen this quickly, what do you have to lose? And her confidence in me taking this step helped me go from scared a little bit, a lot of it, whatever, to more excitement to be like, yeah, I can, I will, I am. And then I actually started taking it a little bit more seriously and really considering it a lot more than I had. Not that I hadn't already been considering it a lot, but there was still this doubt in my head. And I'm telling you guys, one of the cool things, if you can start paying attention to small details, is when all crazy things line up in the most craziest ways that you cannot make sense of, that is a sign. I don't know about you, but it's very rare in my life when these small details align so perfectly that I couldn't have made it up. Like, it's serendipity, it's divine. I call it divine intervention or divine timings. That is what happened earlier this week. And then with my mother, who's a big support system, the woman has moved more couches than probably anybody known to man. And she probably is at the age where she shouldn't be moving too many couches. Okay. But having somebody that says, I know you. I know you've thought about this. I know that you're not going to make a decision heartedly, that you're not going to do your research, that you should do this. You have it. Then it changes my perspective on a scary challenge. So celebrate the wins, big and small. Get you some buddies. Okay. And you know what? You did that scary thing. High five yourself. Literally, go ahead. I'll wait. High five. For me, I actually like to even give myself a pat on the back, okay? And just make sure that you are reminding yourself progress over perfection, people. Celebrate them victories. And guess what? Why don't you even write it down somewhere? Like, keep you a scary wins journal and note down when every time you tackle something that makes you nervous. Because what happens is whenever you realize that you're doing stuff that makes you nervous and you're doing it anyways, that you're building that muscle that allows you to do even scarier things, jump off bigger cliffs, you know, and hopefully land safely. Okay. So let that fear fuel you. So, what if fear wasn't the enemy, but it was fuel? Like your body's way of saying, hey, this matters. Pay attention. This could be it. And turning that nervous energy into productive energy can be like a game changer. It could actually let you channel that adrenaline that you feel into action. So here, I want to wrap this up, folks, because I know y'all have things to do today. Y'all maybe got to go do some scary stuff. So I just want to remind you, scary things are just a part of life. We can either let fear stop us in our tracks or use it to propel us forward. So let's take a deep breath and take that first step. You got this. So what's your homework for the week or your challenge is I want you to tackle one thing this week that's been giving you the creeps and making you all scaredy scared. It doesn't have to be huge, just something that gets you a little out of your comfort zone. And let me know how it goes. All right, folks. Thanks for hanging with me. And this is your reminder. Until next time, stay brave, stay bold, and go do a little something scary.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.